Hello, I'm Stephan Schwartz, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to Schwartz Report. Yesterday, uh, my wife and I had some time with some friends of ours, and we got into college debt, which is a significant issue. And I began to dig into this. I have covered it in Schwartz Report Daily a number of times, but I wanted to put something together because as I was doing research, I discovered that there is some good news. And I was surprised, to tell you the truth. This student debt issue, I recently had a conversation with a friend who had been my primary care physician not before I moved to where I am now. And he told me he's still paying off $200,000 from his medical school education. This is a man who's must be about 40 years old at the time. It's unbelievable. But in any case, that's what I want to talk about this week. And there are two parts to this issue. The current debt, that is what people owe and presently, and then what's happening with college debt. Now, unless you happen to have college debt, and many of you may very well be in that position, it's kind of like having a mortgage to a house that doesn't exist. Anyway, here's something from the Pew Research Center. You look at this. 15% of all adults 18 to 29 currently have some kind of student loan debt. 18 to 29-year-olds, 34%. 30 to 44-year-olds, 22%. 45 to 59-year-olds, imagine this, 7%. And 60 plus, still 1%. And if you're not familiar with this, let me give you a sense of what we're talking about here. Look at this chart. Medical school loans, $293,440, typical. Law school, $143,310. Art school, $53,407. English majors, $97,110. Engineering majors, $89,119. Engineering majors, $89,119. Philosophy majors, $112,418. These are preposterous amounts of money. Here's another medical school loan, $393,421. Veterinarian school, $202,407. Master of Arts, $189,221. I mean, these are unbelievable amounts of money. Now, start with this. Do you agree? I certainly do, that it is in the interest of the well-being of the country for people to be well educated. And I have reported on this before, both in the Daily Schwartz Report and in these podcasts. We're not doing very well. 54% of us can't read past sixth grade level. 43% can't read past fifth grade level. And you think about that. If you are that limited in terms of your literacy, you can't really read the New York Times or the Washington Post or goodness, any more complicated publication and really comprehend it. We don't do well at mathematics. We rank poorly. I've talked about this before. So if we're going to be a well-functioning democracy, we need to be well-educated. Well-educated because well-educated people understand why well-being must be our first priority. They don't feel as manipulated as people with lesser incomes, lesser education. So, what is the current college debt collectively? Well, according to LendingTree, Americans owe $1.74 trillion in federal and private student loan debt as of the second quarter of 2024. Now that's down a little bit from the second quarter of 2023, when it was $130.28 billion. But think of those numbers. I mean, who thinks and talks in terms of trillions of dollars? And yet that, as a country, is what we face. Now, the Biden-Harris administration, and Kamala Harris has made it clear that she and Waltz are going to make this a big issue, which is why I think they ought to be elected. I want you to look at this announcement that came out on the 21st of May, 2024. It was approved by the Biden-Harris administration. They brought total loan forgiveness down to $167 billion for 4.75 million Americans. Think of that. Think of that having been taken off your shoulders. Thanks to this administration, this current one, more than 1 out of every 10 federal student loan borrowers has now been approved for some debt relief. Think about what that would mean to you. Think about what that does mean to you if you are part of this. But it's not happening easily. Republican-led states have filed a lawsuit to block the Biden student loan forgiveness plans. Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Missouri, North Dakota, and Ohio just filed a lawsuit to block new student loan forgiveness plans that the Biden administration wanted to start this fall. And the lawsuit marks yet another legal challenge from what used to be the Republican Party, what I call the maggot party now. It's not really a party, it's a cult, but in any case, I don't want to get into that today. The lawsuit marks yet another legal challenge to President Biden's student loan policies and could tie that up until after the November election. Currently, the Biden-Harris student loan repayment plan, known as SAVE, Saving on a Valuable Education, is blocked while litigation plays out in the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, and the president's sweeping one-time student loan forgiveness program was knocked down by the maggot majority on the Supreme Court. This is not something everybody's trying to fix. You need to get really clear about that because it's going to affect what happens in the November election. If you vote Republican, you're voting for student debt. Think about it that way. You vote for the Democratic ticket, you're voting for relieving student debt. Now, as I have talked before, in European countries, a number of countries, you go to college for free. You know, they're more literate, they're more numerate, they're doing more interesting things technologically. We need to get back on track as a country. This was so important to the founders. Benjamin Franklin set up the first library because he felt this was so important. It became the Library of Congress. Other founders felt very strongly education was the key to a successful democracy. So that's where we stand with people who've already incurred debt. But I wanted to give you some good news, because independent of all this political posturing and the back and forth, there's an increasing number of colleges and universities that have made their own decisions and are implementing innovative strategies to make college education more affordable and accessible, particularly for low-income students. So let me give you some examples. Washington State universities. If you're a family of 4 and you make less than $78,500, your college or career training could be free. Brown University fully covers tuition for families earning $125,000 or less with typical assets. That means they own a house. In addition, students of families making less than $60,000 a year with typical assets will receive scholarships that cover all expenses: tuition, room, board, books, and additional scholarships to help with other expenses. So the universities in the United States are beginning to recognize that while the politicians struggle with this and the Republicans try to block student loan forgiveness, the universities recognize why it's important to have an educated population, and they're doing things about it. Look here, Princeton University, undergraduates from families that earn up to $100,000 will not have to pay for tuition or room or board at the university. The University of California system, the 9 schools in the University of California system, Berkeley, Davis, Irvine, Los Angeles, UCLA, Merced, Riverside, San Diego, Santa Barbara, Santa Cruz, will waive tuition and fees for state residents with total family incomes less than $80,000 a year. Even in a swing state, a purple state, I'm not quite sure what they're going to be in the election in November, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill will cover tuition and mandatory fees for in-state undergraduates whose family income is less than $80,000 starting this fall. So you can really see things are changing. Now, if you'll go, as you know, at the end of each podcast, I publish references that you can use to dig deeper into what I'm saying, and also to check that what I'm telling you is the truth and not some kind of misinformation. Schwartz Report is about objectively verifiable factual information. So this week I have posted references which will give you a whole list of colleges in all the states that are offering programs that will allow people who have, well, I don't think of $80,000 as a low income, but who have a typical kind of middle class income up, in Princeton's case, up to say $100,000. I don't think of that as a low income. But in any case, the universities themselves are beginning to make changes. And I've put up references where you can get information about your state and programs you can get into. Because if you're one of my listeners and you've got young children, or you are a young person who's either in or going to college, there is a change, and it's outside of the politics. And I urge you to look into this, because I think the previous years of people who have these awful, awful college debts, we need to stop that. We need to look at things differently. And I hope you will do that. And I hope you will vote in November for politicians that support student loan forgiveness and support education at a cost or no cost, so that we can become a better educated, more democracy-oriented United States. Thank you.